This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bishop. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Welcome, George. Thanks for being here again.
Always great to be with you, Dr. Marlene, and good morning, at least in our time zone.
Yes, that's right. It is still morning here. So for a lot of people right now, a lot of kids and their parents, they're on spring break. And I think, that's pretty universal across our country. Is most states and school districts within the state have spring break, and they aren't always exactly the same week. Even here in our city, some of them, the different school districts, are on a different week, but they're all around this time. If they're not happening this week, they're happening next week. If they aren't happening next week, they'll be happening soon, or maybe they've already happened. But I thought this would be a good time to review kind of the rules that we follow and the structure for vacations, spring break, summer vacation, because that's coming up too. We'll have, summer vacation for each parent. And we have kind of some methods to the madness when it comes to different breaks, holiday breaks, spring break, summer break. So I thought we would dive into that. And let me ask you this, George. Would you not agree that every year we have trouble around whose spring break it is, when it starts, when it ends, all of that?
Absolutely, and Christmas as well.
Oh, yeah. Christmas is the worst. We'll talk about this again at Christmas or around the holiday time. But it often kind of starts, if you will, with spring break. Summer becomes another issue. And then it's Thanksgiving break, and then Christmas. And, but this kind of, I think, seems to be or tends to be the beginning of the issues over breaks and holidays. That's my
Yeah,
thought.
spring break is well, to me, it's like Christmas. In that
Mhm.
people squabble about pick up and drop off and exchanges and what time and what day and so forth. Um, so they're similar to me, and yet it's amazing
Mhm.
because Christmas comes the same time every year, yet we have
Right.
problems every year. Spring break comes for each school district about the same time every year, but we have
Yes.
problems every year. So
Every year. Yeah.
people are well advised to start early to plan and arrange their agreements for those holidays and all holidays, quite frankly. And again, my song is that always first consult your parenting plan.
Yes. Yes. Well, and something else, and I'm probably jumping ahead, and hopefully we'll remember to repeat this at the end. But if it isn't clear and you have troubles this year, get it in writing for next year or the next holiday or whatever, because there are parenting plans that are vague. It says every other year the parents will alternate having spring break, so in even years, mom has spring break. In odd years, dad has spring break. But that's all it says. And it doesn't say, when does spring break begin? Is it the end of school on Friday before spring break? Is it sometime over the weekend? Is it Monday morning, the beginning of quote unquote spring break? Now, to me, I write it where Friday after school begins spring break and it ends the following Monday, 10 days later, 9 days later, whatever that is. But that's the way I write the spring break. But there's some people who split it. And I don't know why they do that either, because then no one really has enough time to take a trip.
Hmm. Yeah,
You know?
that's true. And splitting spring break is kind of unusual. Typically, what I would see is alternating.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I usually see too. But getting back into when does it start? When does it end? It really doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. Where we get into trouble is one year when it's one parent's spring break, they want to start it on Friday. But the next year, when it's the other parent's spring break, they want to start on Monday. And it's like, okay, we can't have it both ways. And this goes back to what I was saying about get it in writing. And if it's not, figure it out and put it in writing.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
it doesn't take much, just a simple email or a simple email on an app
Yeah.
that confirms the agreement or the arrangements, because people forget, memories fade, uh, selective perception, selective retention. So it's a good idea to have a little bit of memorialization in writing. And it can be very simple and very short, very
Mhm.
brief.
Yes. But that is important because people will remember it very differently. They'll each be certain that last year it happened this way, you know. So it's really important to do that. And then let's go ahead and identify who's picking up, who's dropping off. Are you going to meet somewhere halfway? Are you going to pick them up from school at the end of that week prior to spring break? How are we going to do the exchange? And same with on the back end. How are we going to do the exchange at the end of spring break? And this might seem silly and stupid. People who have never lived this and experienced this might think that we are just overreacting. No, I get calls, and that's what made it come to mind is I'm dealing with it right now. I get calls every year. We don't agree on who has spring break, who's supposed to drop off, when I pick them back up or when they deliver them back. They just don't have any forward thought, forward thinking to plan ahead. And then it becomes, and it's the same families every year that I hear from. That's what I can't believe, George, is it's the same families every year. I said, I thought we talked about this last year. Well, yeah, we did. We didn't agree then either. Well, did we put it in writing? No, you know,
Yeah, and that's really neglectful on the part of the parents. It's so easy. It takes so little time, and it avoids a big squabble. Because if we get into court over squabbling about vacation, spring break, Christmas,
Mhm.
uh, then my job is to make the other parent look intolerant and inconsiderate of the child's needs, and
Mhm.
that's what I try to do if we have to go to court.
Yes, yes. Well, and I'm glad you brought up court because speaking of that, first of all, you're not going to get in if it's the week before spring break and you don't agree on spring break. You're not going to get into court before the start of spring break.
No.
And people think that an emergency motion will fix it. This is not going to be considered an emergency to the court. It is to you because you need to know right now, but it's not to the court. And even then, at least in Colorado, I can only speak for what happens here, but the courts have 14 days to set an emergency hearing. Now, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a legal professional, you are. But correct me if I'm wrong, they have 14 days to set it. So again, spring break might be here and gone before you ever get before the judge.
Oh yeah, that's true. And uh, really, people by the time they start to squabble about these things, they're often months away from a court date.
Yes. Yes, they are. Because again, this is not an emergency to the court. Your emergency does not constitute an emergency to the court.
No, and we say poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on the part of the court.
That's right. That is so right. Well, then I'm going to jump into vacation because this is another time, summer vacation, that parents get really worked up about how long summer vacation is. And usually, typically, this is my experience, at least here, is 2 weeks is standard. Now, some plans say you can take it a week at a time. Others say you can take it 2 weeks consecutively. Others say you must take it a week at a time or you must take it 2 weeks consecutively. And again, parents want to know, when does that begin and when does that end? Well, going back to your famous advice of check your parenting plan, whatever day, because we're in summer now, so there's no school going on. So I can't say, well, start yours at the end of the school day on Friday, because they're not in school. But whatever day the parents do their exchange during the summer, whether it's Sunday, Friday, Monday, whatever day, start it on that day for consistency. Would you agree with that?
I would, and another issue that comes to mind is if someone is going to travel over his or her time, I think
Mhm.
it's only reasonable to let the other parent know that.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. If you're going out of state, but even traveling in state, and I'll give a perfect example of something going on today. You know, I love real life examples. Today, I've got kids that are visiting a place called Glenwood Springs here in Colorado for spring break. One of the kids has a birthday today. One of the parents wants to do a quick birthday call with the child. And this particular parent right now does not have unsupervised time. So he gets a hold of me the day before, yesterday. Her birthday is today. They're in Glenwood Springs where there's all kinds of things to do, but you have to schedule things. You know, there's different train rides that you can take and things like that, but you have to schedule things. And so we're scrambling last minute trying to figure out. And I think he forgot they were even gone because when I mentioned it, he's like, oh, yeah, that's right. So obviously he forgot that they were even gone. Well, now are we going to disrupt whatever reservations they have made to have dad have a 5-minute phone call with the child? Well, I can tell you, I'm going to make it happen in the best interest of the child. But when you fail to tell the parent that you're traveling, or if you're the parent who forgets that they're traveling, I mean, again, you've got to pay attention here.
I think so, and a parent can easily accuse the other parent of something if they travel and they don't inform. And so
Right,
it's a simple thing. Again, just how would you like to be treated? Treat the other parent that way.
right. Yeah, the golden rule has never applied more than in these co-parenting situations. And
Absolutely.
it yeah, and it really is that. It really does come down to that. Just treat them the way you would want them to treat you. Now, back to the travel issue, though, I have found that most plans say if you're going to leave state, you must let the other parent know and in advance. I get parents who say, well, I was going to tell them when we got back. No, that doesn't cut it either. But don't most plans say that you should let the other know?
I don't know that I can speak to most plans. They're so individualized.
Yes,
But I think it's a good provision to have in there.
yes,
Uh, I don't know that most plans provide for that or not, but certainly it's a good provision to have in there.
yes. Can I say that most plans I write have it in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I do include it always. Because parents just forget or don't think about it or don't think they need to let the other parent know. No one wants to get that phone call that says, we're in another state and we just got into a car accident. Because this is what I had happen years ago on a case. They had gone out of state actually just for the day, but they got into an accident. It was minor, it was a fender bender. But one of the kids called back to the other parent and said, we're in Wyoming and we got into a car accident. And the mother is freaking out, calling me saying, they're in Wyoming. Well, Wyoming is 2.5 hours away from Colorado Springs. So that's not a long way away, but it sounds far when you say another state, when you say Wyoming, when you say Utah, when you say whatever, it sounds far away. And so a little preventive maintenance goes a long way.
Absolutely. And really, there's no reason that parents should be kept in the dark by the other parent as to what's going on with the child. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to report every single thing and call every day and so forth. Encourage helicopter parenting. We're not saying that.
No,
But a
no,
reasonable amount of planning, a reasonable amount of forethought really can help go a long way.
it can. It sure can. And there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to tell the other parent that you're taking this trip. Because if you don't, like you said, all kinds of things are thought and said and accused, like he or she is absconding with the children, things like that. And it wasn't that at all. But sharing information is crucially important when it comes to children.
Well, I think it's important that it comes from the parents as opposed to the children, because one of your stories that's one of my favorites is the child telling mom we're going on a boat.
Yes. Yes, that absolutely happened. And she called me, this was a couple summers ago. And she called me and said he is taking off with them. They said they're getting on a ship tomorrow. Well, they were touring a docked ship that now has a tour of the ship. And, it's a tourist attraction. And so they weren't getting on a ship at all. Well, they were to tour it, but it's docked and it's not going anywhere.
But
So,
I bet
yes.
somebody was probably frantic about that.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's
Yes.
because of the information flow through the child, and it's not an effective way to go.
No, and those kids were 5 at that time. And so if you think a 5-year-old is a reliable reporter of information, you are mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's true, and
Yes.
that's one of my favorite stories of yours, that we're going on a boat. And
Yes,
so-
yes, mine too. And the parent thinking that parent's kidnapping them. Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. And we don't make this stuff up. These are real, true life stories. Okay, it's time to take a quick break, but we've got a lot more to say on this subject when we come back. So stay with us and we'll be back shortly. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, George, we're talking about parents thinking that the other parent is absconding with the child or children because they're not aware they're traveling. And so, again, communication is pretty darn important because you can eliminate a lot of frantic parents and overreacting parents if you just communicate a little bit.
I think that's true. And another thing that occurs to me, you were talking about a birthday. I think birthdays fade in importance over time.
Mhm.
As far as communication or seeing the child, once they get a little bit older, the birthdays come and go. They know that. They know that one parent is going to be celebrating their birthday, the other one may at another time, and they're okay with that. As I say, I'm not aware of children who object to having multiple parties.
No, no, no. In fact, that's a selling point to kids about their, and this is going to sound so bad, about their parents' divorce. But it's not a selling point. I really don't mean it that way. But we do tell kids anything that makes this better. And one thing is, and there's a movie, I've forgotten now, which maybe Kramer versus Kramer or one of those, where the kids go, 2 Christmases. But we really do tell them, you're going to have a Christmas party at each house. And they're like, all right, they don't mind. And so when parents act like, and also kids don't care if their party is on the day of their birthday. For example, the little gal who's got a birthday today, they are having, and now I have forgotten if it was last Saturday or this coming Saturday, but they're gone right now, like I said earlier. And so her party with her school friends happened either last Saturday or this coming, and it's not today anyway. And parents get real worked up on talking to them that day. And like I said, I will make this 5-minute phone call today happen. It's important. But you don't have to see the child on that day, because often if they're, and I'd say more times than not, if their birthday falls during the week, that birthday party is going to be held on the weekend, not their birthday.
Well, and one thing that's sad is a parent gets very agitated about these types of things. But
Hmm.
I would speculate that the concern of the parent, the upset of the parent, is communicated to the child. They know something's wrong, something, and it's around their birthday, and so it's kind of a mess. It's unfortunate for the child, and it's another example of where taking the high road would be beneficial to the child.
Yes, and you are absolutely right. The kids could care less, don't even think about it until a parent brings it up. And they say, I'm so sad that I'm not going to get to see you on your birthday. And the child was fine until the parent said that, you know?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And
Yeah.
so the parents just communicating their insecurity or about their status as a parent to the child, and the child is really lacks any resources to be the
Mhm.
caretaker of the parent.
Right. That's exactly right. Thank you for saying that because the parent who reacts like that is indeed making the child the caregiver for them. They are making the child responsible for their happiness. And to be honest, I just texted something to that effect to a dad over the weekend, this last weekend. He reached out about something. And I said, she is not responsible for your happiness. He was saying how sad he was that she wasn't responding back. And it was a weekend and she was with her friends and she's 11. And, it's like, it's not personal. And he said, well, it feels awfully personal. It makes me sad. And I said, she's not responsible for your happiness. And so parents need to understand that.
Well, I think it's really unfortunate because I would expect that it makes the child feel very insecure.
It does. It does. It makes them anxious, sometimes unfairly makes them feel guilty. And that's just not fair. That's not right.
No, and it can really relatively easily be avoided.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. This is not hard to navigate. And also, if you're the parent who doesn't have the child this year, for whatever it is, their birthday, a holiday, whatever it is, you'll have it next year. And the other parent will be in your boat. But some parents feel like if they aren't present, that's all that matters and that's all they care about. And this goes back to the golden rule, like you said a little bit ago, George. Just treat them the way you want them to treat you.
Well, and I think as children age and become later teenagers, they probably want to spend at least a portion of spring break or Christmas break or something with their friends.
Yes, I knew where
Those,
you were going with that. Yeah. Yeah, because
yeah,
it's so true. Mhm.
yeah, I don't think that it's important to the child to spend every waking minute with mom or dad. They'd rather be with their friends at least a part of that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what they get up thinking about. They don't wake up thinking, "Oh, I hope both mom and dad will be around today." It's, "I hope my friends are here. I hope my friends come. I hope my friends," it's all about their friends for sure. Yeah.
Well, and I look at that human laboratory, the mall, and you can see the effects of that pretty clearly.
Yes, yes. You see a lot more kids, and the mall's a great place to go to test this hypothesis. You go to the mall and you'll see a lot more kids with other kids than you will with their parents. There's some who are with their parents, but you get in that teenage and preteen age range, and by far you're going to see more kids running around together and often you'll see a child with a parent because someone's got to take them to the mall, but you'll see another friend or couple of friends with them. And who are they interacting with and hanging out with and joking around with? It isn't the parent, it's their friends.
No, that's true, and
Mhm.
I think We all, as our children age and become more independent, we all feel a little sense of sadness around that. And that, I think, is true regardless of whether you have divorced or separated parents or parents who are together. They feel a sense of a little bit of a sad sense that their children are growing up and don't have the need for them the way they did when they were little. And so the parent needs to deal with that as opposed to trying to have the child uh, be the emotional caretaker of the parent, because they're
Yeah.
going to separate, they're going to individuate, they're going to eventually probably pair bond. um,
Mhm. Mm.
and but the relationship, if it's quality, can will sustain itself after they emancipate.
Yes, yes. But to that point, you also can't wait until they're in their teenage years to establish that relationship. That's done long before teenage years. And so you get parents who want to force teenagers to do something because they haven't established that relationship. And it's like, you've got to wait now until adulthood because you are not going to be the focus of their attention right now at all.
No, I think that's pretty true, and that's true for intact families or
Yes.
separated families.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you made that point, and this is why I love having you as my co-host. Is that is such a good point. A lot of these things happen in intact families too, but people don't get worked up about it and blame the other parent because they're still together, and there's no need to blame. It's just how it is.
Yeah, I think that's true, and if they can carry that into their separated parent status of
Mhm.
their children growing up, basically, uh, then there's an absence of blame and finger pointing and so forth. And if both parents can recognize that the children are going to emancipate, they're going to individuate, they're going to uh, bond with their friends and prioritize those relationships, then they can avoid blaming and pointing the finger at each other to some extent.
Right, right, exactly. Because they do typically blame the other parent. There is a lot of that going on. Parents don't take responsibility for developing their own relationship with their children. They blame the other parent. They say that parent frustrated my attempts to bond with our children. You know, that doesn't seem likely if you were together, you know?
No, and it's really kind of sad, sad, excuse me, I guess, as children age into young adulthood, they recognize the parent who is kind of goes with the flow, as
Mhm.
opposed to the parent who is constantly agitated by the situation.
Yes. Yes. That is correct. I would absolutely agree with that. And that goes back to developing that relationship long before. You know, you don't have to worry about losing your child, so to speak, to their friends. I mean, is it a little sad? Sure, they don't need you as much, but they're going to include you in their lives. My son's friends sometimes would be talking to me about stuff that was way more than I even wanted to know, you know? But that was a good thing. It was a sign of the relationship that my son and I and his friends have. And so
Yeah.
I welcome that. But yeah, a parent who thinks they're going to jump in now and be important in their children's lives if they are teenagers, it doesn't work that way.
Well, I think again, it doesn't work that way for intact parents,
No,
intact families either.
no.
Um, those relationships have to be built over time, and it's nice to have the relationship with your children as they become adults, as long as you
Mhm.
have a communicative relationship.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think as they become adults, they're even more aware of what parent is acting out, if you have a parent acting out, and they're more inclined to withdraw from that parent than a parent who kind of goes with the flow.
Right. Right. They absolutely will. And also, forcing them is never productive. I mean, that's another one I've been dealing with lately. It related to spring break. I mean, this fits this topic for sure. That parents want to force them to do things. And the thing this child wants to do has nothing to do with the other parent. It's his friends. Yeah, it's his friends. They have stuff they want to do this week. He wants to do it along with them. Mom is close by, but in a different town. And she is flipping out, saying, "No, it's my spring break." And I'm like, "No, it's really his spring break, the child's spring break." And parents get real hung up on that too. It's mine. And it's really not yours, it's the child's. And they're going to spend it the way they want or resent you. And that's what I told her. You can make him stay and spend all his time with you, or you can let him go do what his friends are doing. But he's only going to resent you if you make him stay.
Well, and unfortunately, I used to see parents who were afraid if
Hmm.
they traded days or gave up a few days that it would impact their child support.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
typically, that's just not going to be the case. The
Mm-mm.
court's not going to get agitated about a few days traded off or
No.
even a slight imbalance in days. That's just not something the court's going to get agitated about.
No, and I have parents tell me the same thing. I'm not going to do that because the other parent will use it against me. And so I ask them, use it against you because you're doing what your child wants? I mean, I don't think a court's going to use that hold it against a parent.
No, I don't either. And of course, the court's going to look at the needs of the child and
Mm.
the ability of the parent to place those needs ahead of his or her own needs emotionally.
Yes. Yes.
That's a biggie.
Yes. That is a biggie. That's one of the factors of the best interest of the child statute. And it is a biggie. Can you place the needs of your child above your own? And I'll give you another example of that that's consistent with everything we're talking about here. I've got a 13-year-old who proactively asked dad, not even for this summer, but future summers. Dad is out of state, and said, "Can I not spend the whole summer there?" He just asked to have a few weeks here so that he could do things with his friends. And he specifically said, "My friends, a sports camp that I've not been able to go to that I would like to eventually go to." And, things like that. And the dad absolutely said no and said, "I am not giving on that. That's one I'm not giving on. You will be here and you will be here for the whole summer." And I told the dad, "You're going to push him away. He is going to resent you. And after he turns 18, good luck hearing from him."
Yeah, that's pretty sad,
Yeah,
and yet um, I think so much of that is attributable to the parents' insecurity about
it
their
is.
relationship with their child.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And I am glad and impressed that as an attorney, you recognize that, because you do recognize it and it is real. And I have a lot of attorneys and parents who just don't recognize that. But it is so true. It's a reflection of the relationship you have or have not established with the child and your
Yes,
insecurity. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's true, and it's unfortunate because then it creates that situation where a parent wants child to be emotional caretaker.
Exactly. Exactly. Wow, we went full circle on that one. Okay, we need to take another quick break, but we'll be right back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, well, the whole show so far, we've been talking about the planning in advance that needs to be done in situations around spring break, vacation, holiday, all of that. And the point that we were making right before we went to break is parents placing children in a position to be their emotional caretaker. And this is all I can say is what I see on my end, because George, you don't see these kids later, as they approach and reach adulthood. But what I see are kids who just end up resenting parents for that. And so, we forget they're going to grow up, they're going to
Well,
grow up.
and as attorneys, what we hear from our clients is not necessarily objective reporting either. And
Right,
so
right,
we have to have take things that they say with a grain of salt. And
right.
but we have to do that in a manner where the client still feels that you're on their side and
Mhm.
they can trust you.
Yes, yes. But that is something that drives me a little bit crazy because I will get both attorneys who are telling me opposite things, and they are both so sure that what their client told them is correct. And I'm like, it can't be. Somebody's off here. Somebody's wrong. Somebody's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, it's just difficult to sort through what
Mhm.
is hysteria, if you will, and what is
Yeah.
fairly accurate reporting.
Yes. Yeah. It is difficult because sometimes there's also an element of truth to something, like the ship, the boat story. Yeah, they were getting on a ship. That's correct. But it's docked and it's a tourist attraction. Anyway, um, a couple other things about holidays and vacations and all of that is, and we can't emphasize enough, getting it in writing, preferably even filing it with the court. The court might wonder why you're filing this one element, with the court. And so if that's the case, you can hang on to it, but just make sure that you've got whatever it is in writing to show the court if you ever have to. But when it comes down to forcing kids, when it comes to holidays and vacations, and it might hurt our feelings that they want to spend spring break with their friends, but I mean, we're preparing them for adulthood. That's our job. And so that's really what parents have to focus on, is if they want to do this activity with their friends, I'm not always going to be here, and they're not always going to need me. They're not always going to be here. And so they're going to fly the coop at some point. And so really the best thing we can do is do what we can when they're young and hope that that keeps them attached to us. And 95% or more of the time, if you have handled those formative years well, you're not going to have a problem. I'm going to go back to what you said, that it's an insecurity of the parent who has not attached to their child, not spent time bonding with their child and making memories and listening to them. There was a song years ago, Cats in the Cradle. And I don't know if you remember that, but
Yes, I do. It was a sad song, really.
yes, it was. And it was about the kids, and this goes back to the point I was making about they're going to grow up. However we treat them, if we don't have time for them when they're growing up, we can count on them not having time for us when they get to be adults.
Well, I think as they get to be adults, they recognize if one parent is engaging in alienating behaviors,
Mhm,
and they resent that. Why would you try to turn me against mom? Why would you try to turn me against dad? As they become adults, they recognize those behaviors. I
mhm.
think a lot more than when they're children,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and they're not okay with it.
No, no. In fact, they will grow up and one day say to their parents, "How dare you? How dare you kept me from my mother, my father, whatever?" That's what's going to come back.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I've experienced that in my own life, where I
Mhm,
was I was kept from a parent for 11 years, and
mm.
as I grew up, I was kind of upset about that, I guess. There was no
Yeah,
real reason. There was no thought about the child. It was just, can I control the situation? And so I recognized that as I grew up, and I rectified the situation by myself and
right.
connected with that other parent. But it's not always possible, and it's typically a very sad situation.
Yes. Yes, it is. And that's the piece that parents forget is they're going to grow up, they're going to look back and see what you did. And at 5, they might not recognize it, but at 15, they sure as heck will. And, at 18, they no longer have to give you the time of day. And so it's important how we establish our relationship with our kids. And to say to a 13-year-old, no, I will not budge. You will be here all summer, every summer until you're 18. I guarantee you at 18, that kid's not going back.
No, no, I think that's foreseeable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think it's important for parents to ask themselves now, along the way, what are my kids going to say when they're adults? When we're sitting around the dinner table and they're 25 years old, are they going to say, "Thank you for allowing me to love both of my parents"? and never making me feel bad or guilty that I loved the other parent? Or are they going to say, why? Why did you have to do that? And how dare you? That's what they're going to say. And well, I mean, you take inventory and ask yourself, for the parents out there, which are your kids going to say? I would love to actually do a call-in show sometime and have parents answer these questions in real time. Like, what would your kids say right now if they had to look back on their upbringing? Are they going to thank you, or are they going to be resentful?
Well, and that is a big deal. And if they would give
Hmm.
some thought to that while they're in extremis and upset about things, then maybe they could get some perspective that would help them calm down.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, like we were talking earlier about intact families, and things are not equal in intact families. So, why is it that we think once we've separated, we've got to make it all equal and even and fair? I hear the fair word, the F word, a lot. And in my world, that's fair, because kids don't come up with fair on their own. There's a parent who's saying that to them. They're whispering in their ear, or maybe shouting in their face, that this is what's fair. Don't you think it's fair? And the minute I hear that word from a kid, I'll ask them, who said that to you? And they'll tell you. They don't know any better. Because I don't say, did someone say that? Of course, they'll say, oh no, I came up with that myself. But if I say, who told you that? They'll say, my mom, my dad. Kids are great, it's the parents who need work.
And sometimes the kids are the accurate reporters.
Right, right. And sometimes the kids are the parents.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate to see that, because
It is.
I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on a young adult to have been forced into being an emotional caretaker of their parent, but I imagine it's not going to be a positive thing.
No, no, they're going to be resentful. And they are just plain not going to want to spend a lot of time around you, because they are still carrying your emotional baggage around because you imposed it on them,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah. But
Yeah, I
getting
think,
parents to see that
and
is difficult. Yeah.
a little bit of planning can eliminate so many of these things. A good
Yes.
parenting plan,
Yeah.
a specific parenting plan, uh, parents who can ebb and flow with each other, and make an exchange from time to time, or trade weekends. I think that's going to make the child or the children feel more secure about their parents.
Yes. Yes. They will. If they see you working together, that can be powerful. That can be hugely powerful.
Well, I don't think there's any question about it, and so it takes vision for parents to really maybe put up with a little inconvenience or a little emotional pain now for payback for life.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And last closing thought, don't forget to get it in writing. Whatever you do, get it in writing.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're out of time once again, but so good having you here, George, and we'll see you all next week. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week. Oh, we will not be here next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks, actually. All right. Take care.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.